Hey everyone, welcome back to the Snowcast, episode 2 of the sports talk version of the Snowcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening, and I just wanted to give a quick thank you for last week for everyone who liked, subscribed, commented, anything to interact with the first episode of the podcast. I very much appreciate making the change from a gaming Elder Scrolls Online podcast to a New York Giants football podcast is pretty drastic, and I know a lot of my community is like, Will, what the heck are you doing? But I appreciate everyone who's kind of followed me over, just shown any support. I'm going to say at the beginning of most of these podcasts, if you're not a football person, give it a shot. I wasn't for the first 20 years of my life. But it's really, really fun to follow and watch games and stuff. So either way, I appreciate you guys who have been sticking with me. We got a ton of stuff to talk about today, guys. This is actually the second take I'm doing of this episode. So in the other first take, I was just doing it, and I was rushing, and I caught myself rushing a little bit. So let's take everything nice and slow. I'll explain some things, give some thoughts on the different things that have been going on within the Giants, but first we're actually going to talk about 4 things that have happened outside of the Giants in the past week. So what's going on right now in the NFL is free agency and trading players. So free agency, I believe, starts next week, and so what they're doing this week is all the trades are happening. So I'm going to focus on the quarterbacks. Quarterback, in my opinion, is the most important position in sports. And there's been a bunch of news coming out about a bunch of quarterbacks over the past week since the first episode. So I kind of wanted to talk about those a little bit because they kind of affect the Giants, especially with the draft coming up. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to move a little bit slower, explain some things. And yeah, let's get into it. First thing outside of the Giants was earlier in the week, Aaron Rodgers, who is the tenured quarterback at the Green Bay Packers, decided after mulling it over for a few months that he was going to stay with the Packers and signed a 4-year, $200 million deal. Aaron Rodgers is one of those players that is all over the place when it comes to people's opinions. So, you'll talk to some people and, oh my gosh, Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen play. And he's the best quarterback in the league. And then you have other people, like my brother, who think he's kind of a joke. And the reason I think he's a joke is not because of his talent, but because of his personality, his leadership ability, and just his overall demeanor with his team. Me personally, I think Aaron Rodgers is one of the most talented quarterbacks I've ever watched in my entire life. Just thrower of the football. He's extremely accurate. He's extremely smart. He makes decisions very quick, and he's confident. And I think a lot of those aspects make a great quarterback. But for anyone who follows football, you see Aaron Rodgers always plays well in the regular season. He's won the MVP the past 2 years, which is pretty ridiculous. But then he'll get to the playoffs, and his leadership abilities kind of start to spring up in a negative way. 2 years ago, when they played the Buccaneers in the NFC Championship, I remember the defense was struggling against Brady. And Aaron Rodgers, instead of getting his team pumped up and being like, hey guys, let's do better, let's focus, let's go. He was kind of staring at him like my dad used to when I would get a D on a test or an F on a test in school. Very much looking down on them, I'm disappointed in you, not really inspiring, but instead criticizing. And so, like I said, Aaron Rodgers, regular season is a superstar, but it just seems like he can't make that final jump. For anyone who doesn't know, he did win a Super Bowl with the Packers 11 years ago. So it's been 11 years since the guy's been to a Super Bowl, let alone winning one. So it is what it is. With this 4-year deal, though, I actually think for both sides, it's a win. And I'm actually really happy for both sides. The Packers don't have anyone else at quarterback, and being able to keep, probably now with Brady gone, one of the top 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL, I think that's absolutely awesome. And, people are like, oh my God, $200 million, $153 million of that's guaranteed. I'm sure it is somehow a team-friendly deal where then they can keep other players. So, for example, they were able to keep Aaron Rodgers' best wide receiver, Devontae Adams. So both those guys are coming back to the Packers, which is just awesome for the Packers. They need those 2 guys to be competitive on offense. So it's awesome. And then the other quick note for the Packers is, we talked a little bit about it last week, I think, cap space. Each team can only spend about $208 million on their team. So being able to keep Rodgers and keep Davante Adams and keeping Rodgers on maybe a team-friendlier deal than what it was going to be gives them some space to keep good players, let some players go that they know they might not need now, and then also, maybe bring in some new guys that can help within the draft or younger guys, because the Packers are going to have to move some money around to get under that cap, but Aaron Rodgers restructuring and staying for a couple more years definitely helps. And I also think it's great for Aaron Rodgers. I think the fad right now in the NFL is quarterbacks jumping to new teams, which we will talk about. But I think staying with the Packers, staying with Davante, staying with the coach, Matt LaFleur, I think that's better for Rodgers. I think Rodgers wants to win one more Super Bowl. And the division the Packers are in, they have a better chance of winning the Super Bowl. Being in the NFC, they have a better chance. So when you go to the Super Bowl, one team from the AFC and the NFC can go. So for example, like the Patriots and the Jets couldn't go to the Super Bowl. They're both AFC teams. Or the Giants and the Cowboys. Those are two NFC teams. But the Giants and the Patriots can play each other in the Super Bowl because Patriots are AFC, Giants are NFC. And the reason I say that is the NFC is becoming less and less competitive. So the fact that Rodgers is staying in there and all the other good quarterbacks are over in the AFC, he has a better chance of getting to the Super Bowl. So like I said, I'm happy for both sides. I'm happy the deal got done. I'm hoping the Rodgers drama is over. I follow a lot of sports TV. I like to watch like Undisputed, First Take, First Things First, Pro Football Talk. All those shows are great. I'm sick of talking about Aaron Rodgers. He's staying with the Packers. Shut the hell up. Go win a Super Bowl, and then we'll talk about you. I'm tired of hearing about how he's unhappy, about how he wants to be the host of Jeopardy. Just tired of it. We don't need it. So, good for Aaron Rodgers. Good for the Packers. Happy for them. Another trade that happened a little bit later in the week, was Carson Wentz went to the Commanders, the Washington football team, from the Colts. So where I said the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, what a great deal for both teams, this one I don't think is good for either team. So let's start with the Colts. The Colts had Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, then they had Phillip Rivers for a year, and then they just had Carson Wentz for 1 year. And they got rid of him. The Colts were a really good football team, and in the final 2 weeks of the regular season, they had to win one of the two games against the Raiders or the Jaguars to go to the playoffs. And they actually lost both, and Carson Wentz, the quarterback, played awful. And I think what happened was the owner of the Colts got really butthurt about him playing so bad and said, I want to get rid of this guy. I personally think there's no better options than Carson Wentz for the Colts. So the other options now the Colts can go is they can go Jimmy Garoppolo from the 49ers. And for anyone, again, when I was doing the first recording of this, I was like saying all these quarterback names. I know people aren't familiar. These are just other quarterbacks in the NFL that can now fill in for the Colts. So Jimmy Garoppolo from the 49ers, Mitch Trubisky, who's the backup on the Bills, who people are like giving all this stock to now, or going into the draft. I don't know if any of those options are better than Carson Wentz. The problem with Carson, if you watch his film, is when he's playing great, and this is just from me watching him, he's one of the top 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL when he's playing great. He's mobile, he's big, he's got a big arm. I mean, the guy is talented. But when he's not playing great, he's like in the top 4 quarterback or bottom 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. Like horrible decision making. He's trying to be a hero on every play, and it leads to pointless turnovers, and it is not good. So Carson Wentz is like this high and this low. I get why the Colts weren't happy with that, but I don't know what option the Colts have that's better than Carson Wentz. Some people hate him. Just like Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, I personally think Carson Wentz is a pretty damn good quarterback. He has his problems, and I don't know if he can get over them, but I definitely don't think he's I think he's a starting quarterback. And I don't know what the Colts are going to do now. I mean, if the Colts get Jimmy Garoppolo or Mitch Trubisky, I just don't know if that's better. The Colts are a run-first team. They have a great team around them. So because of that, maybe they think, okay, we can just plug in another quarterback. As long as he doesn't make the stupid decisions, we'll be okay. I personally think the Colts will regret this at the end of next year. We'll look at the Colts 2022 season, and we'll say, damn, they may have gotten further with Carson Wentz. I mean, they were 1 game away from being in the playoffs. I know that's not what the Colts had expected. They have a really good team, and they've been rebuilding for a while. They want to be in the playoffs. But I think I don't know. I think the Colts will regret getting rid of Carson Wentz. But now going to the other side of the trade, Carson Wentz went to the Washington Commanders for 2 third-round picks. The Commanders are a very quarterback-needy team. I'm trying to think of another team that reminds me of them a little bit. The Commanders have an absolutely stellar defense. They have a pretty damn good wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. They got a pretty good running back in Gibson, and they got an okay O-line. And they keep thinking, damn, if we can just get a quarterback in here, we're going to be a competitive team. I don't know if Carson Wentz going to the Commanders makes them now a playoff-ready team. Ron Rivera of the Washington Commanders is a defensive coach. He likes to run the ball and have good defense. That's just not Carson Wentz's game. Carson Wentz is, let me run the ball, let me throw deep, let me throw 30 to 40 times in a game. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two mesh. Carson Wentz has been in the NFC East before. He was with the Eagles. So now he's coming back. And I don't know. I just don't know if the Washington Commanders are going to get everything out of Wentz that the Colts could have. The Colts head coach has coached Carson Wentz before and knows him. Washington is a conservative team that wants to win through great defense and a good run game. I just don't know if Carson Wentz is the answer there. So, with the Packers and Rodgers, I'm like, no, that's great for both sides. For the Commanders and the Colts, I don't know if moving Wentz is a good move for either. I personally think Wentz will have more mistakes and struggle more with the Washington team, the Commanders, than he did with the Colts. I hope not. I think Wentz is a super talented guy, but he's a quarterback who needs a lot of things in place for him to work. And he wasn't going to get more in place than at the Colts. Having a coach who knows him, who's gotten a lot out of him, having a great run game, having a great offensive line, a great defense, and I don't know if Washington has all of those things as good as the Colts. So this trade happened. I was really shocked. I couldn't believe the Colts moved off him. He was only there for 1 year. I mean, the guy was just getting to know everyone. I guess the final note, too, that comes to mind is Carson Wentz has been criticized for his lack of leadership. The Eagles had a problem with it. It seems the Colts had a problem with it. Going to Washington, where Washington is just known for controversy from the owner down to the players, down to the staff. Carson Wentz is going to love it there because all of his controversies will fit right in with the Commanders. As a Giants fan, I'm not a huge Commanders Washington fan, but I hope the best for Carson. But from what I believe, I just think the Colts and the Washington team both made mistakes. If I was the Colts, I would have kept Wentz another year, give him another year in the system, get more pieces around him. And then also, if I was Washington, I would have drafted a quarterback. Malik Willis looks like an amazing talent. Washington has picks and players to be able to move up. So I would have maybe gone with a Malik Willis or maybe, bring in someone like a Teddy Bridgewater or a Jimmy Garoppolo, something like that. One other piece, too, is Wentz was very expensive. So I think Washington had like $32 million in open cap space out of their 208. I think Wentz takes up 28 of it. So you have a quarterback who's injury-prone, mistake-prone, and has struggled in the NFL and now has nothing around him that benefits him compared to the team he was on before. He's taking up a bunch of your money. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, like we said last, I was wrong about Dave Gettleman. I could be wrong about the Colts and the Commanders getting rid of Wentz. We'll see, though. I don't believe so. Next one, guys. We got 2 more outside of the Giants stories I want to talk about. This one I'm going to take a minute because I've never seen anything like this before in the NFL. Russell Wilson has been in the Super Bowl twice, won 1 Super Bowl, was an MVP, and was the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks until early last week, where he was traded for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a third-round pick, and 3 players to the Broncos. I've never seen anything like this before. We saw Matt Stafford traded, but Matt Stafford's never been to the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford, I don't think, has ever won a playoff game. And he went to the Rams. Russell Wilson has won a ton of playoff games, been to 2 Super Bowls, and has won 1, and was 1 bad throw away from winning a second one. and he was traded at 32 years old to the Denver Broncos. I'm going to start with my questions. So I have a couple questions. This was a big trade. First, on the Denver side, Denver is saying, hey, we have a win-ready team. We just need to plug in a quarterback. That's a bold statement. They got a good receiving core. Okay, offensive line, not really great. Defense is good. Young players getting better. Patrick Surtain, that cornerback, is a beast. I'm not going to lie. They have an okay running back. But they have a new head coach coming in, and they are in a tough division, guys. They have to play the Chiefs twice a year, they have to play the Chargers twice a year, and they have to play the Raiders twice a year. All three of those teams were either in the playoffs or one game away from missing the playoffs last year. I don't know if the Broncos have a win-now team. We're going to see. Second question I have is for the Seahawks. You're rebuilding. I get it. Okay, we can't win with Russ. We can't do it. Let's start rebuilding the team. Let's get some draft picks, get some players. Let's start rebuilding. Why are you keeping 70 or 71-year-old Pete Carroll? Nothing against Pete Carroll. I mean, the guy's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won one. He's a good coach. But you think if you're rebuilding, I think the style of the NFL now is offensive head coaches. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. Super Bowl last year was Sean McVay of the Rams and then Zach Taylor of the Bengals. Both under 40 years old and both offensive coaches. Rebuilding the Seahawks is fine, but with that coach seems a little bit strange to me. He's very set in his ways. He's an older defensive coach. I just don't know if he's the right guy for a Seattle build. Those are my 2 questions. Are the Broncos actually win now ready? And is Seattle rebuilding with Pete Carroll as the head coach? Those are 2 things that are questions of mine. But good for Russell Wilson. I know he's excited. He had in his trade, in his contract, no trade clause, which basically means you can't trade me unless I say okay. So Washington, who traded for Carson Wentz, rumor is really wanted Russell Wilson. But Russell was like, I'm not going to the Washington Commanders. The Broncos, on the other hand, are much more, I guess he thinks they're a win-now team. So, again, for anyone who's not familiar with the football, for anyone who's not familiar with football, a quarterback being traded at 32 years old who's been to 2 Super Bowls is wild. That is wild. I couldn't believe it. When I saw it, I couldn't believe it. Good for Carson, or good for Russ. I hope it works out. We're going to see if the Broncos are a win-now team, and we're going to see if Pete Carroll's the right coach to rebuild with. Now, if the Seahawks struggle, that's okay, but let's just see if the team stays together. As a side note, too, I do feel really bad for DK Metcalf. He's a wide receiver on the Seahawks who's one of my favorite players to watch. I loved him coming out of the draft a few years ago. And now he goes from Russell Wilson as his quarterback to maybe Drew Lock, the old quarterback for the Broncos, who was a complete bust. So I feel for him there. But there might be some method to the madness with the Seahawks, because the 4th and final story of the NFL, outside of the Giants, is Deshaun Watson. Final quarterback that has some things going on. Deshaun was a quarterback for the Texans, and I believe it was last year. He said to the Texans, hey, I don't want to play for you anymore. The owners made some really creepy racist comments before that are suspect. They never seem to hire the right GM or head coach. They always just want to hire Patriots guys, which, as a Giants fan, we know fail miserably. And so Deshaun's like, no, I don't want to play here. And the difference between Deshaun and maybe a Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson, Deshaun is 26 or 27 in his prime, and when he did play, he took Texans teams that weren't very good all the way to like the divisional rounds of the playoffs, which is like the second round. So either way, he said to the Texans last year, I believe it was last year, he said, hey, I don't want to play for you anymore. Trade me. I will not show up to camp. I will sit a year. I will not get paid. I do not want to play. And then about 2 weeks later, a bunch of sexual assault allegations came out against Deshaun Watson. And so what that did regardless of true or false, is the players said, or the team said, we don't want to trade for Deshaun. We don't want him. We're not going to give you 3 first-round draft picks, 2 second-round draft picks, and a bunch of players for a guy who might get suspended. We're not going to do it. So for the whole year of 2021, Deshaun Watson did not play football. One of the top 10 best quarterbacks, at least, didn't play any football last year. Crazy. We just all forgot about him. But on Thursday or Friday, he had a Supreme Court hearing, and he was found innocent of any criminal charges. That does not mean he's innocent completely, but any criminal charges, which basically means there's a very low chance he will be suspended from the NFL. So that means the trades are back on now. And Seattle now might have the draft picks and the players after trading Russell Wilson to now go down to Texas, Houston, and trade for Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is an amazing, amazing quarterback. I am a big Deshaun Watson fan. I'm going to be completely transparent with you guys. With all of the sexual assault cases and everything like that, I have not done enough research, so I don't want to say true or false to any of it. But all I want to say is, as a player, a guy who literally throws a football, Deshaun Watson can throw a football. So that's all I'm going to say on that, but he's very good. What's tough is trading for Deshaun Watson, because the Texans are going to want the farm, which basically means they're going to want a ton of draft picks, a ton of players, and they're going to gut your team. So then you're like, okay, I lose all my good players, I lose all my future draft picks for a quarterback. Is the quarterback that important? In my opinion, this is a bold opinion, there are 2 teams that can trade for Deshaun Watson that I think could trade enough and still be a good team. The first one is the Seattle Seahawks. They already lost their quarterback. They got a ton of draft picks, ton of players. They're good to go. Go trade for Deshaun. Go do it. If you want to win football games, go trade for Deshaun. Okay, fair enough. The other team is the Carolina Panthers. I believe his name is Tepper. He's the owner of the Panthers. He wants a quarterback. They tried Sam Darnold, tried Teddy Bridgewater, didn't work. To all Panthers fans and to the owner of the Panthers, mediocre quarterbacks will not put you in the NFL, or not put you in the playoffs in the NFL. So if you go trade for Deshaun Watson, you can give up Christian McCaffrey, your running back who's overpaid and absolutely useless in my opinion. He's always injured. He's talented, but he's always injured. Trade him and some of your first-round draft picks, and you're good to go. So those are the 2 teams. Deshaun Watson could go to the Panthers or the Seahawks. Again, the reason now these trades are heating up, or these talks are heating up, is because he was found innocent of any criminal charges. So now NFL teams are like, okay, if he's not going to get suspended, we can trade for him and maybe figure something out. So those are all the topics that kind of came out of the NFL. Aaron Rodgers staying with the Packers, Carson Wentz going to the Commanders, Russell Wilson going to the Broncos, and Deshaun Watson being cleared of criminal charges and can now potentially go to a new team. Ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff. You know, where maybe the Giants news isn't as crazy in a week like this, the NFL news is ridiculous. And I hope everything works out for all the teams. I just think the Packers are going to see the most result out of what they did. And then I think the Colts and the Commanders are both going to struggle. They're both going to see some diminishing returns on these investments. The next thing to talk about, let's go into the Giants. One of the things we learned as Giants fans at the end of last year is Daniel Jones, regardless of if you think he's talented or not, or the future quarterback of the team, he's injury prone. And we need to have a good backup quarterback for when he gets injured. Last year, we talked about it. Daniel Jones ran into an eagle, hurt his neck, and was out for the rest of the year. And Giants football to watch was miserable because we didn't have a good backup quarterback. We had Mike the Neck Glennon, and he was horrible. And then we brought in Jake Fromm, State Farm, and he was horrible. And so watching Giants football sucked. So one of the things at the end of last year was Giants fans and the community was like, we need a backup quarterback. We need a serious backup quarterback that is competition for Daniel Jones. Because Daniel Jones in every year has missed games due to injury. In his first 3 years has missed a couple games because of injury. We need someone to compete with them. So the name that gets floated around is Mitchell Trubisky. Talked about it in the last segment. Mitchell Trubisky was I believe, the second or third or first overall pick a couple years ago by the Bears, and he failed miserably. He went to the Bills for a year last year. For people who watched episode 1, you know where this is going. He went to the Bills, and he was the backup. And now, coming out of being a backup, he has fixed his image so much. He has gone from this bust to this savior. A lot of teams and a lot of analysts think, oh no, Mitch is going to be good. The reason he is linked to the Giants is because the Giants hired a GM who's from the Bills and a head coach who was the offensive coordinator of the Bills, Brian Daboll. We talked about him last episode. Brian Daboll was Mitchell Trubisky's offensive coordinator last year, and now there are rumors that Mitchell Trubisky will come to the Giants to compete with Daniel Jones for the starting job. This would be a huge mistake. Huge mistake. First thing, does Daniel Jones need competition? Yes. I don't know if Daniel Jones is the guy, and he's going to get hurt. Mark my words on this episode, he will miss games next year due to some stupid injury because he runs like he's a running back. He will miss games. The reason Mitchell Trubisky would be a mistake, one, is cost. We talked about it last week. We're going to talk about it again a little bit. The Giants' cap space is horribly low. Thank you, Dave Gettleman. Everyone in the comments, put a thank you, Dave Gettleman, for all the shit we have to deal with as Giants fans for about the next 3 years because of Dave Gettleman. One of them is we have no cap space. Why is that a problem? Because Mitchell Trubisky is going to require some money to bring him in to be a backup quarterback. I do not want to spend $10 million on a backup quarterback. I'm sorry. I don't want to do it. We don't have the space for it. We don't have the space for it. It would not be a good move to do it. Mitchell Trubisky is going to require a lot of money too, because right now we have Seattle Seahawks, Carolina Panthers, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm trying to think of all the teams that need quarterbacks. The Colts, Indianapolis Colts. 4 teams that desperately need a quarterback. Mitchell Trubisky, coming out of being a backup for a very good offense at the Bills, is going to have a lot of people looking at him, and I do not want the Giants getting into a bidding war for a quarterback who might sit on the bench for 13 out of the 17 games we play next year. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Mitchell Trubisky should not come to the Giants because it's going to cost us too much and not give us any real return. He's going to get more money somewhere else. Teams need a quarterback. Giants don't need a quarterback. I'm being honest. We don't need a quarterback. We have Daniel Jones for 1 more year, and I want to see what he can do in a Brian Daboll offense. I do. I told you, I like Daniel Jones. Pisses me off sometimes. I don't know if he's the answer. If someone held a gun to my head and said, hey, Will, is Daniel Jones going to be the quarterback for the Giants for the next 10 years? I'd say no. But give him 1 more year. We have him on his rookie deal. We don't have to give him another contract. Just 1 more year. Now, back to what I started this segment with, we need competition for Daniel Jones. It is not Mike Glennon and Daniel Jones as our quarterbacks. Please, God, no. It is not Jake Fromm and Daniel Jones as our quarterbacks. The Raiders have Marcus Mariota, the second pick from 2015, as their backup quarterback. He would be a great backup for Daniel Jones and be much cheaper. Tyrod Taylor, I believe he is on the Texans right now. He would be a great backup quarterback for Daniel Jones. Someone who has been a starter, who is competent, who can throw the ball, and if Jones gets hurt or starts playing like shit, we can replace him. My guess is they would cost anywhere from $3 million to $7 to $8 million. I do not want to pay 10 to 15 for Mitchell Trubisky, the Bears quarterback of 4 years who sucked and who was the backup on the Bills last year, to maybe sit on our bench. Some people are going to very much disagree with this take, by the way. Daniel Jones haters will disagree with this take, and rightfully so. Let me know in the comments. Will, this is a stupid take. We need Mitchell Trubisky. We need someone for when Jones gets hurt or inevitably starts playing like shit. Just don't want to pay that much money. We don't have that much money. I wish we had the money to be able to do it. Thank you, Dave Gettleman. In the comments, thank you, Dave Gettleman. Thank you. The reason we can't have Mitchell Trubisky, a competent backup quarterback that could maybe even replace Daniel Jones if he actually is as good as some people think, is because Dave Gettleman used all of our money on a bunch of players that aren't that good and are old. Thank you, Dave Gettleman. Don't bring Mitchell Trubisky to the Giants. If it's under 10 million, sure, okay. All right, fair enough. If it's like 9 million, I'm still going to be like, geez, we're going to spend 9 million in a lot of other places that would have been a lot better. Don't bring Mitchell Trubisky to the Giants, please. Okay. Whew. I should have got water. Some news for the Giants. So, with all these great contracts Dave Gettleman had set up, we now have to figure out who we're going to cut. Two of the players last year who were pretty much potential to almost shoo-ins to get cut were Sterling Shepard and Blake Martinez. Sterling Shepard is the longest tenured Giant. I started watching the Giants when he was drafted in 2016, his rookie season. And Blake Martinez has been with the team now for 2 years, and last year he tore his ACL and missed the second half of the season. Both of them had pretty big, hefty contracts, and our new general manager, Joe Schoen, had to cut some players. These two guys are older, injury-prone, obviously, and we could save money if we cut them. The problem the Giants have is we don't have a lot of money, and we don't have a lot of depth. So what does that mean? When we cut players to get money, we're making our team considerably worse. So it sucks either way. We keep all these players, and we have no money, so we can't bring in anyone else new. We can't sign anyone. Or we get all this money, and our team is absolute butt because we don't have any players because we had to cut them. So Joe Schoen, savior of the Giants, my guy right now, I'm a big Joe Schoen fan, reworked Sterling Shepard and Blake Martinez's contracts to basically keep each of them on the Giants for cheaper money. It's awesome. I already know what happened. Joe Schoen goes in there, he talks to Sterling Shepard, Blake Martinez, talks to their agent, says, hey guys, this is the situation with the Giants. I just got here. I'm sorry, I need to cut some guys. You guys got injured. The free agent market is not going to do you well. We want to keep you here. You guys are good players. Can we restructure your contracts and pay you a little bit less so we can keep you here, but also bring in some new players and be competitive? And shout out to Sterling Shepard and Blake Martinez for saying yes to this because it is huge for the Giants and helps us so much. It is great news because they are both very good players. They are veterans. They are leaders. And when we bring in new guys, they can help these new guys learn. Blake Martinez on our defense is different. Sterling Shepard is Daniel Jones's favorite target as a wide receiver. Keeping both of these guys and also saving money is ridiculously insane and extremely good news for the Giants. I get excited just talking about it. God bless. God bless. It's like a GM making competent decisions, finally. I put some notes here. I just want to talk a little bit about the money, just a little bit. So there would have been a lot of dead money if we released them. Basically, we release them and we don't get some money back. Shepard and Martinez both agreed to base salaries of roughly around $2.25 million and can double it if they play well. Incentives. How many catches? How many tackles? How many games do you play? This should drop the cap number from $14 million to $8 million for Martinez and about $12 million to $6 million for Shepard. So if you do 12 plus 14, it comes right around 26. So we went from 26 million for these two players down to 8 plus 6 is about 12. We cut about 12 to $13 million in cap space and kept two players. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Joe Schoen gave us $13 million to spend on other players, spend in the draft, but he kept all the players. It's awesome. Shout out to Joe Schoen. He's kicking butt. He's not there yet. You hear other podcasts. I've been listening to him as well and other, sports shows. Joe Schoen wants to save $40 million. He's only saved right now, if you add this 13 plus cutting some of the other players for like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, he's probably saved around 18 to 20 million. So he's got to do another $20 million. Blake Martinez, or James Bradberry, Leonard Williams, and Kenny Golladay are three players that are eating up a ton of money that we either need to cut, trade, or rework their contracts. And those are going to be big ones. Joe Schoen is moving slowly. He cut some of the players we didn't need. He restructured some of the contracts of players we do need where we could save money. And now he's got to get to the big ticket items. And this transitions beautifully into the last topic for this episode, and that is the draft. Giants have the 5th and 7th pick in the draft. So in the top 10, we get to pick twice. That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. There's a ton of scenarios that work for the Giants here. We trade back, we get more draft picks, more chances, more lottery tickets. I'm fine with that. We stay at where we are, and we get 2 top-end players to fill in and be here for the next 10 to 15 years. Perfect. What is important to note, though, is depending on what Joe Schoen does with the players we currently have, that'll tell us where we're going in the draft. And let's start with James Bradberry, the cornerback, not quarterback. I used to get this confused. Cornerback. Cornerbacks defend wide receivers. Cornerback has extremely high positional value. Cornerbacks are very valuable because they defend against the top wide receiver. Very high positional value. If we get rid of James Bradberry, we are going to need to fill that, and it is very likely we will fill that with a player in the draft as a cornerback. I have a link here. The Giants released this, so I wanted to take a look at this. These are some potential draft choices we're going to make. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to react to them and let you know what I think would happen, and do I think it's the right or wrong decision. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this over here. For anyone who's watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see a lot of this. For anyone who is on Spotify, you will listen. I will read out everything, though, so it'll all make sense. So let's click on this link. Let's pull it over here. And then let's share my screen. There we go. So this is on the Giants website. Link will be in the description for anyone to check out. And so what it's basically doing is there's all these draft analysts, and it's taking all of them and basically putting them in one. So we're going to go through, and it's only pick 5 and 7. Giants have more draft picks, but right now I'm just focusing on pick 5 and 7. So basically there's different analysts. So we have Todd McShay. Todd McShay works at ESPN. This is who he thinks the Giants are going to pick at 5 and 7. Pick 5 will be Trayvon Walker, the defensive end from Georgia. Pick 7 will be Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver from Ohio State. Let's start with Garrett Wilson. If we pick a wide receiver in the top 10, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. I will be extremely disappointed. We just brought Sterling Shepard back. We have him back. We're paying Kenny Golladay, a wide receiver, a ton of money, and we drafted a wide receiver in the first round last year. Garrett Wilson's a beast. He ran an extremely fast 40 dash. But that doesn't mean anything. And the fact that Todd McShay thinks we're going to take a wide receiver at pick 7 to me is silly. One of the things as a Giants fan is some people don't know anything about the Giants. I'm not saying Todd McShay, but this just seems... If we picked a wide receiver, I personally would be very bummed out. We don't need more wide receivers. We need people to protect Daniel Jones, and we need people to hit the quarterback. Pick 5, defensive end Trayvon Walker, is okay. It's not the defensive end I want, but what's tough with the Giants is picking at 5. A lot of the players we want, or I want, like a Kayvon Thibodeau, might be gone at 5. Taking a defensive end, I'm happy about. We can see here it said he had 6 sacks and 29 pressures. 6 sacks is not a lot, but he was asked to do a lot of different things in the Bulldogs' front 7 that presented 3 other likely first-rounders. They think teaming him up with a Leonard Williams and Azeez Ojulari would be very, very helpful. I think that would be too. I would not be super stoked if this was our draft. Trayvon Walker seems okay. His ceiling doesn't seem super high to me. And then wide receiver Garrett Wilson has a very high ceiling, but I don't want a wide receiver. Let's go down to Mel Kiper at ESPN. This one I love. Not love. I like it. Number 5, we get Kayvon Thibodeau, the defensive end from Oregon. The reason he'll fall to number 5 is because some people think he doesn't like football and doesn't have a great motivated personality. I think it's all bullshit, And I personally would love to have a Kayvon Thibodeau as a New York Giant. I love it. He is a amazing defensive end. And the way football works, a lot of people, they talk about a floor and a ceiling. How bad can you play? How high can you play? Carson Wentz, for example, has a high ceiling and a low floor. When he plays bad, it is shit. And when he plays high, it is amazing. Kayvon Thibodeau has an extremely high ceiling. One of the things I think people should do in the draft is draft players with a high ceiling. Love it. Devin Lloyd, inside linebacker from Utah. The reason I don't think this will happen, just like with the wide receiver, is we brought back Blake Martinez as a linebacker. I love the idea of going linebacker, but my problem with this draft is, where is our offensive lineman? What this draft must be assuming is that I forget his last name every time. And, I'm going to forget both of their names. Maybe they're down here. No, I don't see him. Oh, there he goes. Eki Ekwonu. And then who's the other guy? Come on. Now they think he's going to be gone. They're not showing him. Tyler Linderbaum. This draft is assuming those two guys will not be on the board. Okay. If we get Kayvon Thibodeau, though, at number 5, I will be stoked. And if we take a linebacker, that's fine. But that means in the 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th round, we better take some offensive linemen. I really want one of these top-tier guys, though. Daniel Jeremiah's draft from NFL Media. Number 5, again, Trayvon Walker. I believe that was who we were taking up in the first one, right? Yep. Trayvon Walker from Georgia. Okay, again, adding that defensive line. A lot of people seem to think the offensive linemen will go first, and then a lot of the defensive linemen will be down in 5 and 7. And then Drake Landon, wide receiver, USC. I don't know where people, maybe this came out before the Shepard news, but I just can't see the Giants taking a wide receiver at number 7. That's the second one. Not that I don't like Drake Landon. He had an awesome combine, which is where he showed all of his skills. We just don't need a wide receiver. Let's keep going. Let's keep moving. Steve Palazzo, Pro Football Focus. Number 5, Ikem Ekwonu, offensive tackle, NC State. Love this guy. If we get him, I will be so excited. The problem is some people have him projected going 1 overall to the Jaguars. Or is it the Lions? I think it's the Jaguars have the number 1 pick. If we get him at number 5, though, as an offensive lineman, that is huge. Again, guys, positional value. We want offensive linemen. They have more positional value than wide receivers do. It's just the truth. Wide receivers, you can find all the way into the 6th round. Antonio Brown, I know he's crazy, but 6th round pick. Devontae Adams, the best wide receiver in the NFL. I believe he was a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. You don't need to spend top 10 picks on wide receivers. 7, cornerback Derek Stingley, cornerback LSU. Cornerback. What this is assuming is we don't keep James Bradberry. If we don't keep James Bradberry and we take a cornerback, I'm okay with that. High positional value, and if it works, it works. And with our new defense with Wink Martindale, a good cornerback's important. So I'm okay with this one. Offensive tackle to protect Jones, and then a cornerback. That's okay. Let's keep going. Bucky Brooks, NFL.com. Pick number 5, Charles Cross, offensive tackle, Mississippi State. Love taking an offensive lineman. A lot of people think Charles Cross that's too high to pick him at. A lot of people believe Linderbaum and Ekwonu are better linemen than Charles Cross, and Charles Cross might not be worth the pick at 5. Still love getting an offensive tackle, someone to put a cross-side Andrew Thomas at right tackle. Love it. And then David Ojabu, edge, Michigan. This guy is good. I haven't watched a lot of film on him, but I've heard people talking about him. He could be a very good player for the Giants. And again, defense. I love the positions here. Offensive tackle, protecting the quarterback, edge, hitting the quarterback. Perfect. Love it. That's okay. This one, Bucky Brooks, I'd be good with. I love it. Dane Dougler, The Athletic. Sorry if I'm butchering these names. Don't ever ask me to pronounce names. Cornerback, Cincinnati, Ahmad Gardner. Cornerback, again, we don't have James Bradberry. They're saying we need a cornerback. I'm okay with this. Ahmad Gardner, great 40-yard dash, and his tangibles are pretty ridiculous, like his size, his arm length. Like if you go like this, how far does his arm spread out? His speed, he looks good. Charles Cross, offensive tackle, Mississippi State. Where Charles Cross might be a little bit of a reach at number 5, number 7 might be the spot where we pick Charles Cross. I like it. Cornerback, offensive tackle. I'm good with it. I like it. Trevor Skmia, Pro Football Focus. If we get this one right here, I will cry. If this is our draft, I will tear up if this is our draft. Number 5, Kayvon Thibodeau, edge out of Oregon. One of my favorite players, if not my favorite player out of the draft. I love this guy. Number 5, that would be huge. Edge. Again, my 2 positions I want to go are edge and offensive lineman. 3rd is cornerback. Those are the top 3. Any combination of those I'm good with. Edge, love it. Ridiculous if this happens. Tyler Linderbaum. He literally says in the analysis, yeah, I know you don't take a center this high. However, I genuinely think I genuinely think this is where Linderbaum's range begins. Number 7, Tyler Linderbaum. He's an amazing lineman. I personally think if you don't want him at center, you could maybe move him, but if he's a center, that's fine. He is a beast, but again, being a center, maybe a little bit high, but offensive lineman, wherever you put him, I'm fine. Center, right guard, left guard, offensive or right tackle. Right tackle would be my preferred because the way it works is you want the 2 guys on the outside of the offensive line. Those are the 2 players that are the most important. All right. Austin Gale, Pro Football Focus. It's Evan Neal, by the way, not Linderbaum. Evan Neal and Eke Ekwonu are the 2 best linemen. Evan Neal and Eke Ekwonu. Excuse me. Those are the 2 guys I don't think will be at our picks, but we'll see. Number 5, Evan Neal, offensive tackle, Alabama. A lot of people think this guy is going in the top 1 or 2. If he comes down to 5, he's the guy you pick. If it's between him and Thibodeau, Evan Neal I would take over Kayvon. Evan Neal is a slam dunk pick, and we need offensive linemen more than anything else. Offensive line is the most important position needed for the Giants right now. Defense, always good, but offensive tackle is the most important. And then I'm going to butcher this name, George Karlaftis. Edge out of Purdue. Would love this draft. Getting an offensive lineman and a defensive end, an edge, perfect. Michael Renner, Pro Football Focus. We got a couple more here. Kayvon Thibodeau, love it. And then a cornerback, Ahmad Gardner out of Cincinnati. Love this one. Just where's my offensive tackle? Jeez, how many? Okay, all right, we're almost done here. Good God. And there's so many names. Cynthia from NFL Network. I'm not even going to try anymore. Ekam Ekwonu, offensive lineman. I love it. And then George Kalafakis, edge. Love it. Chad from NFL.com, offensive lineman again, Eke Ekwonu. And then linebacker, Devin Lloyd. So they think we're not keeping Blake Martinez. But now that we are, I don't think Devin Lloyd's going to be a choice for us. I think cornerback will be more important. And then finally, this is a combination I've been waiting to see. Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus said Evan Neal. Again, if he's at 5 man, that's who you take. And then Ahmad Gardner, cornerback. This would be amazing. This is assuming no trade backs, but I would love this. I would love it. Okay. That was a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like 4 or 5, but that's okay. Basically, to kind of wrap up the draft talk, the 3 most important positions for the Giants. The 3 most. Offensive lineman, defensive edge, cornerback. Those are the 3. If you hear those positions called, be excited. Anything else, the wide receivers being chosen, no way. We don't need more wide receivers. Yes, we can maybe get rid of a few, but we don't need more. I like John Ross. I'd keep John Ross around. Darius Slayton, he's not expensive. Sterling Shepard took a pay cut. Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney, we don't need wide receivers. Don't need them. Offensive lineman, defensive edge, cornerback, please. Please and thank you. Put in the chat what you think we should do for the draft if you guys are invested in the Giants draft. Okay. Whew. That's it for this episode. I want to thank everyone for sticking around. I hope you guys enjoyed. Next week, we're actually going to have the next 2 weeks, I have guests lined up. So for anyone who is familiar with the Snowcast back in 2018, we interviewed all these people from the Elder Scrolls Online community. We're going to be doing a very similar thing here with the Giants community. And let me tell you guys, the content creators I already have lined up are freaking amazing. I'm really excited to have them on. It'll be a ton of fun. It'll be very much an interview. We'll kind of learn a little bit about them, and then we'll talk about some of the topics. Maybe if you guys put them in the chat, what do you want me to talk about with this person, or what do you want to talk about in general? Yeah, I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's anything you want me to cover on the next one, like I said in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you guys all on the next one.